It's another edition of the Boomtown Pod, all things MMA. Thank you once again to Smash Into Pieces for the theme song for us. Wake up, go check them out, all the way from a little place called Sweden. So they're very, very cool. I got to interview them a few months back, and they were absolutely awesome. But nonetheless, hey, we're here. We're live. We had an incredible fight card that just happened. We're going to recap all of that. Plus, we're going to preview some other stuff for you. But, of course, I got to do some introductions because we got some new faces on the screen today. Of course, joining me once again is Cole from Sandman Boxing System. Cole, how are you doing?
Good. Nice having me back. This is awesome. You're looking good, Andrew, like always.
Well, thank you so much. I real hard. Speaking of looking good, down below us, he's a great MMA fan, a big fan of and supporter of our podcast for a very long time. Come out to a couple of live events that we threw at Ballers and stuff like that too. Justin, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Absolutely, buddy. My pleasure. Super excited to be on here. Just a little thing. I mean, this show is basically got me more involved in wanting to watch more UFC and stuff like that. So hats off to you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, that's what this podcast is all about. I want people to come together. And I mean, in Canada, it's a little bit different because I feel like the market isn't as crazy as it is in the States. And obviously, there's a huge following because, I mean, let's face it, UFC is king out there right now, which is insane. MMA in general is just insane out there. And hopefully we can get some more stuff coming to the Canadian forefront. I know that there was supposed to be a Saskatoon card months ago, almost years ago, I guess now at this point, because of the restrictions and lockdowns and stuff like that. I think it was, Cole, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it was right before everything shut down.
Yeah, there's actually a couple planned in Saskatoon that just got shut down. And even recently, just a handful of months ago, when things started opening back up, but then last minute just shut down. So kind of frustrating, a little bit frustrating for everybody. But you know, I think it's on the upswing right now. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, once again, we can't do this stuff without all the people that are on the bottom, of course, our sponsors for the podcast, the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. Check them out. Great and absolutely pumped to be a part of that group. Stellar Gear out in Saskatoon, out in Cole's area, Dana and crew. Make sure to go to stellargear.ca/Boomtown10 for 10% off of all your purchases, which is absolutely awesome. Goes a long way. You can save on t-shirts, but not fuel. So, I mean, kind of win on that one. And of course, our good friends over there at Sandman Boxing System, who are a great sponsor of ours. Thank you so much. Those sweaters are fire. I can't wait to get some done up for Boomtown. I'm going to reach out to your wife very, very quickly and get those done. And also, of course, Blue Collar Media Group. Couldn't do it without them. They've been my ride or die since day one. So thanks to those guys and everybody back at the team. So with that being said, we got another sponsor, of course. And this is a segment, number one, called The Week That Was, sponsored by PAWFC. Of course, Pasadena Women's Fighting Championship, making the announcement on their Instagrams in August, coming back to Calgary. The date hasn't been locked in yet, but I will be ringside for that, so I am pumped again to be with them. We're going to have fighters on as well, joining us throughout the next upcoming months, previewing that fight card. I know there's some celebrity guests that are being talked about as well. But if you want all the latest, make sure you check the ticker, PAWFC.com, for all of the latest news and info. Well, let's get into it. UFC 272 took place this past weekend. No title fights, but I would tell you that there was title implications on the line, and we'll get into that. But this one, not a lot of title implications when it came to it. Greg Hardy on his last fight with the UFC, taking on, of course, the angry Russian Sergey Spivak. And Greg Hardy didn't win. Surprise, nobody. Go ahead, fellas. You got the
point. Honestly, that's exactly what I thought.
Hardy going forward, I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I thought was going to happen.
He didn't even show up, it felt like. I don't know. Yeah. I thought he'd put a bit better performance on, personally. I thought he would, but being his last fight, I don't know. It was a pretty dominant performance on the other side, I think.
Yeah, I think Greg Hardy learned a really valuable lesson, is that you can't overlook your opponent. And during media week, it seemed that he was dialed into trying to fight Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa with that rematch. And it didn't seem like he was taking Spivak very seriously at all, which I didn't think. I mean, a lot of times, and Cole can probably relate to this, as a boxer, if you already overlook your opponent, you're done.
You're done.
Definitely. And it's crazy because, like we discussed last time, Spivak is the last guy to beat Tuivasa. He's the last guy to put him out before his 6-fight win streak. What happened is exactly what I thought was going to happen. Get Hardy out of there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the talent pool in the heavyweight division, we're seeing kind of a resurgence again because for a really long time, the heavyweight division was kind of a joke. I mean, there was a couple good fighters, but I mean, it kind of got lost in the shuffle with your welterweights, your middleweights, your light heavyweights, and now it's kind of like, all right, now we got some talent back in the talent pool, and these guys that are unknowns are kind of making their name back up there, which is awesome. And it seems that the talk of the town seems to be the heavyweight division a lot of these days, but I mean, yeah, Greg Hardy, I think the best thing for him to do, and this isn't just saying because, but I really do think he should go to Bellator. The heavyweight division isn't as locked in as the UFC talent is, and I really think he could benefit from fighting some of the guys who have similar records as him now, 7-6, 6-7 guys, you know. And I just think maybe Bellator is the best fit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
100%.
I think he's got different level over there for sure, and it'll be better competition for him, right? So I think so. Cool. He's got to get a bit better shape, I think, too. He looked a little bit out of shape on that last fight.
Definitely he's not taking something, he's not taking it serious, I don't think, you know, like just like you could tell by what he looked like that he wasn't taking something seriously, you know. So even, you know, PFL, you know, go check that out. Bellator is good. Even Bellator might be a little bit too much for Hardy. Maybe like PFL, he could build it up, and then, you know, because I think he just got thrown in there, right? And got a couple of stoppages, and then all of a sudden he's fighting top 5 guys, and it's not going well.
No, it's not. I mean, realistically, he'd had, you know, if he had that killer instinct that he did when he was on Dana White's Contender Series that got him into the UFC to begin with a 53-second knockout, which, if you want to go check it out, one of the most vicious knockouts on the show. If he had that killer instinct like he did then, I think it's just because he got the money, he got the contract, he was given some pretty big names, like Volkov was in there. I mean, and he did pretty well against Volkov. And then obviously the whole Puffer incident, which I still to this day don't think it's a performance enhancing by any stretch of the imagination. And he said, like, he's played his entire NFL career with it in his, you know, basically in his back pocket. But yeah, I think the Greg Hardy experiment's over. I think the UFC's ready to move on. Again, I just don't think he's right for what they're looking for. I mean, if you would have won this fight, maybe they keep him on maybe a one more fight, 2-fight prove it contract. But for Spivak, I mean, his name, again, because he beat Greg Hardy, probably moves him up a little bit up the rankings. But congratulations to Sergey on that one, because, I mean, realistically, it's probably going to put him in a top 15 matchup next, which is probably what he wants at this point. Also on UFC 272 was the other fight that we should get into, Kevin Holland versus Charles the Cowboy Oliveira. Weird Alex Oliveira, sorry, not Charles Oliveira. Really weird matchup when I initially saw it out the get-go. But Kevin Holland, man, you know, I don't know if he's more of a complete fighter because he switched camps, but hey, his striking looked really, really good. And even when he was on the ground, which he's famously known for being on most of the time, he looked pretty decent.
I will say one thing: both these guys have the dance moves down. That's for sure. I mean, there was more dancing than anything on that fight. But yeah, it was a weird fight, but it was entertaining though. I'll give it that for sure.
Yeah, and his call out after was perfect. You know, I think that's a great setup. Fight Donald. Why not? You know, that's a big name. He's probably only got a couple fights left, so I think that's perfect timing. It gives Holland some more time to kind of adapt to that weight class, and I think that's a winnable fight for Donald as well.
Yeah, hard to disagree. The quote was, "I already beat one cowboy. Why not another?" And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to hear all these call-outs with Donald Cerrone, and everybody wants, you know, to have that last fight with Donald Cerrone. We heard Jim Miller call him out whoever wins that Lozon and Cerrone fight, which again, that's coming up in May, which will be a great fight. Whoever wins that, I think, continues to have a career in the UFC. No matter what, if Cowboy loses, I mean, I like the matchup with Kevin Holland. Holland staying in that top 15, beating, I mean, guys who aren't there anymore, which, hey, whatever. I mean, that's kind of Kevin Holland's niche now, right?
Yeah, I like him. I like Holland.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, not a terrific fighter. He's not a terrific fighter, but he's a fans fighter, right? Like he likes the call outs. He's a big trash talker while he's in there. And he's good, man. He's got some decent control when it comes to striking. And again, it's one of a couple fights. Obviously, most notoriously beat Jacare Souza, which was, I mean, the highlight of his career so far. So it'll be continued development for Oliveira or for Holland. But I think Oliveira, honestly, I think this is it. I think Cowboy should almost call it a career. Maybe that's crazy of me to say, but he just doesn't look like he's got it anymore.
I think he's still got another fight or two in him, I think. I mean, like, he looked in shape. He looked very good that way.
Yeah, he might just be maybe a gatekeeper, one of the guys that gets you into the top 15, which is not a bad place to be, especially for the guys who enjoy it, and I think he does. It's not like he goes out there and he's just looking for a paycheck. He puts on a fight every time. He's always in shape. He's always ready. So I don't know. I think he's good. He's good for the sport.
Yeah, Oliveira is good for the sport. I agree with you in that aspect. I mean, the last couple of fights that I've seen him in, I don't want to say like he looks disheveled or like he's already in his own head when he gets down a little bit, but he's got to figure out some way to kind of rejuvenate himself in a fight. I mean, and that's been going on since he lost to the other Cowboy, right? So I really hope that Oliveira can turn it around. Again, one of those guys that's good for the sport. And you might be right, Cole. He might be a gatekeeper. He may be a Clay Guida or, back in the day, a Gray Maynard. Like if you beat those guys, you immediately got, pushed up in the top 10 in title fights. So who knows what happens in that situation? But congratulations, Kevin Holland. He's fun. He's a trash talker, and he's going to be in the UFC for a while. So moving on to our next fight, UFC 272. Of course, this one was awesome. This one, I was at the start of our podcast last week. I literally said, look out for Thug Nasty because he is legitimate. Every part of what I said about his game, he brought in this fight. We talked about this, Cole and I, about how Barboza hates pressure. And what did Mitchell do? Turned up the pressure to 11, and Barboza had nothing. What an amazing performance by Bryce Mitchell. Cole, how did you see the fight?
That's exactly what I envisioned. Like that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. It went round by round. I thought it's going to, it might take him a while to get him down that first time, but once he does, that's going to be the fight. And that's where Barboza hates to be. And he couldn't make up that distance. So it was awesome. I love Mitchell. That was awesome.
He's unreal. And the cool part is he said that I'm going to take half of my earnings and I'm going to go donate it to underprivileged youth in his hometown. And then Dana White said, no, you're not going to take any of that money. I'm actually going to give $46,000 for your charity. So that was really, really cool. And Bryce gets to continue building on to his RV dream park home, which I'm sure will be spectacular.
I absolutely love this kid. I love him. I've been watching lots of stuff after these fights now and his interviews and different podcasts. He's a cool dude, man. He's a real deal. I remember talking to you, Andrew, before that fight, and I definitely underestimated him against this on this card. But he came out fighting, man. He's a good fighter.
Yeah, we talked about it, Cole and I, how bad that Barboza is under pressure. And I mean, he's just one of those guys, man, that in order for him to be very, very articulate and good with his punches or his kicking, he's got to be the guy who gets a little bit of space, but is able to hit those timely kicks. And I mean, I think the scouting report's out on Barboza. It's like, hey, if you get just a little ounce of pressure and come in on him, he's toast. Like it just rattles his game plan completely, which, hey, a kickboxer versus a wrestler, typically the wrestler is going to try to take you down. And that's exactly what Bryce Mitchell did. And I need to put this out there with ease.
Yeah.
With ease, big time. He's slick. He's slick too, eh? Quick.
Well, and that's the thing too. And at the end of the fight, Barboza even said, he's like, I didn't expect him to be as fast as he was with the takedowns. And I mean, he was very elusive. He was very quick. And the second that he got Barboza down, it's not like he was just taking him down and wrestling him a little bit. He was taking him down and throwing some nasty stuff on top. So, I mean, the sky really for me is the limit for Bryce Mitchell. I think we've really slept on the talent that this kid has. I mean, I've been watching him kind of like you, Justin. I said, you know, this guy is the real deal. I mean, he has been for a while now, and he just shot himself up the rankings for sure. Because let's face it, Barboza is a top 10 guy. So I mean, Mitchell, I think will probably be in the 8 or 9 spot this week for sure. Coming up when they drop the announcement for rankings. But yeah, congrats to Bryce Mitchell, man. And you're right, Justin. This guy is good for the sport.
Big time good for this. I look forward to every fight now that he's coming up. Just his press conferences, the way he handles himself. He's just a true guy, right? I mean, they're showing how he's training on the farm, and he's almost like a cowboy, right? Like it's just he's a funny dude too, just a real dude.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I mean, realistically, some of my favorite clips are from him throughout the year. And I mean, he's gone on, like he was on CNN the other day after the fight, and he was talking politics and stuff, and he's as redneck as they come, right? He's a Trump man through and through. So I mean, I absolutely love it. He's just hilarious. And he's not only the first fighter, the second fighter now to get his camo shorts. And of course, that's 2 different companies is what I'm referring to. He is the first man to now get his camo shorts with Venom and with Reebok. And those things look fucking cool.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah,
that's awesome. That is cool to have that.
Oh, just good for the sport. I mean, realistically, you see the same kind of fight kits. I mean, I think the Venom fight kits are way nicer than the Reebok ones. It's just cool to see a little flair of their own originality stick out on it. And I hope that going forward that there's more fighters that are able to do stuff like that. But as he was alluding to, Thug Nasty is super hyped. And he dropped another rap track. So I'm going to have to check that one out, man. He was freestyling after his fight. I mean, guy is gold.
He can do it all.
He's Eminem if Eminem could throw hands.
Gotta get him on the podcast, Andrew. I mean, that'd be awesome.
If Bryce, if you're watching this and your camp ever checks us out, I'll make sure to send this one out to you. But we would love to have you on here, man, because I think you're just one of the most original characters that has ever existed in the UFC. And even if you do not win a title, which, hey, he's on his way to doing, he could potentially do it. Never say never. But if, you ever have the chance, I'd love to get there before you're a champ, man. That's for damn sure. Let's go to the co-main event, boys. This one was, well, it's as predicted. Cole and I talked about this, and we literally said RDA going on a 3-day fight notice, had a full camp. Moicano only having 3 days to prepare for a former champ and a man who has taken out the who's who of the UFC. This one went as planned. Rafael dos Anjos. Only one little tick I'm going to put on this. Failed to finish him when I thought he should have.
Yeah, Moicano, he's got a chin though, man. I mean, he took a beating in this one at the later rounds, and give him props coming in after 3 days, fighting 5 rounds. Like, I think it was the fight of the night. I do. I know the main card was the main card, but I believe this should have been the fight of the night. I believe.
Definitely, yeah. It was. Yeah, just like you said, Andrew. It's just like we talked about. RDA is the man. He is. He's like a MMA fighter through and through. He's like we mentioned a lot. Like his resume, no one has a better resume. Nobody. You can't name one person who has, his last 10 fights. Like he's fought everybody who's somebody in anywhere around his, and he's been in Moicano's position more than once over the years. He's jumped in on 3 days' notice, on a week's notice. He's done that multiple times and won and lost, and so he's been in that position as well. And the one thing I don't know, the announcing was kind of, I don't know, like, he's a grown-ass man. If he wants to be in there, let him be in there, Like, I don't think it should have been stopped, in my opinion. I wonder what the dialogue would have been like if he didn't have a black eye. I wonder what the dialogue would have been like if his face was fine. If they would have still been saying that. Because I don't think it was as bad as they were saying. It just looked bad because of the visual.
Agreed fully. I mean, when I was watching the card, I mean, we both know it. I'm a big Bisping fan. I through and through the fighter. The commentator sometimes gets on my nerves. And the only reason why, sometimes I find myself muting it just because I can't tolerate how they're talking about it, because it's like, honest to God, Moicano did have a lump over his eye, and it was bad. Obviously, we all saw it, we all know it, and it was damaged. But hey, his corner said he's good enough. The doctor gave him clearance to go. It was his choice to take this fight on 3 days' notice, and he's not going to give up. He's a man who's full of pride. Absolutely, he's not going to give up. And in the entire time I was listening to it, and at one point during the fight, I just had to mute it because it was like, Joe's going, "Oh, this should stop the fight. They should stop the fight." Joe, no, man. And the thing is, Joe Rogan also has been watching this sport for years, amongst years. You've seen some of the toughest, bloodiest brawls, and you're thinking that's going to get a doctor stoppage? Not a chance, man. So sometimes I can find their commentary very like, if you're not a fan and that was your first card that you've ever watched, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that guy should quit. That guy." But the normal fan, us who watch it all the time, we're like, "Hey man, toughest son of a bitch I've ever seen, and he's gonna continue going."
Yeah, and I think even just the relationship between the coaches and him, like they know what kind of man he is. They know what kind of person he is. They know what he can handle, where he is, and like and it wasn't like that Glover fight against what's his name, when it was like 3-10-7 rounds in a row. It wasn't like that. It was 10-9s, like RDA was clearly winning, but it wasn't like where he was getting up and like you could tell by his body movement that he didn't want to be in there anymore, and he was doing anything but asking not to be in there. He was in there, and he was pissed off at the end of the fight. I don't know. That's my opinion, I think, but I don't think it should have been stopped.
No.
And I think we can all agree with that. I think Moicano, more than anything, even stepping up and taking this fight on 3 days notice, just showed the world. It's kind of like that guy who fought Sugar Sean O'Malley, got his ass kicked for 5 rounds, but just didn't quit, and just kept pushing and pushing. And he was never going to take no for an answer, because let's face it, when a guy like, I think it was like Christoph something was fighting Sugar Sean, he literally got his ass kicked, but he never stopped. He continued to go no matter how bad the pressure was. There was no quitting it. And then he got signed, like he was a step up and came in, and whatever, it is what it is. But people seem to gravitate towards that never give a shit attitude. Like, let's go. You want to finish me, you've got to finish me. And that's exactly what Moicano proved to me, is that like, hey man, I will fight one of the biggest badasses in this division on 3 days notice. But just know if I have a full camp, and believe me, I think if Moicano had a full camp, his striking was precise, and when it landed flush.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, don't give RDA. You got to give him credit too. I mean, he trained for a fight to fight somebody that was a little bit different style than Moicano too, as well. So I don't want to take nothing away from RDA on that one at all.
And I will take nothing away from RDA. Like we said last week's podcast, he was training to obviously be in a war. And the other one that I kind of have an issue with this fight is that, Moicano stepped up and was awesome that he did, because we still got to see Rafael fight. Islam Makhachev, very interesting. So apparently he was offered the fight. He wanted the fight. He went on Instagram, Twitter, called out RDA, said, "Hey, I'll take the fight." Dana offered him a contract. Islam laughed it off and said, "I'm not going to take this fight." Now, the reported rumors are that he was offered $1 million for the fight. That's what he wanted, which is fucking astronomical. I mean, Islam is unbelievable. He is a great fighter. He is bread and butter in that division. He is far superior than most people. But I am telling you, $1 million to step up on 8 days' notice? You're the one who shit-talked them into wanting this fight. So why do you think you're worth $1 million? No one is. Like, Alistair Overeem in the prime of his career wasn't even making $1 million per fight. So why do you think you can ask for that kind of money? Maybe I'm crazy. What do you guys think?
The whole money UFC's control now too, as well, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they have a pretty system going. I don't think the UFC would be where it is if they were paying millions of dollars. Sandra laughing at the face of the UFC, I think.
Yeah, you glitched out a little bit there, but I think I kind of got bits and pieces of what you were saying. But I mean, realistically, I agree with you. I mean, I understand the company makes a ton of money, and they can afford to pay these guys, top dollar. And that's something that Jake Paul and all these boxers and all this other shit have been kind of trying to throw at the UFC. But $1 million is pretty far fucking fetched, because Rafael dos Anjos is a legend of the sport, and he only made $300,000. So if you get paid that $300,000, then by all means, I'm cool with it. But I just thought that was $1 million. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? You know what I mean?
So he asked for that, and they agreed, and then he still turned it down?
So he asked for the fight, and Dana said sure. And then when it came to the logistics of the contract, he said, I will only fight that fight if you give me $1 million.
Oh, I see.
Which makes no sense at all to me. But yeah, nonetheless, that was the situation there. But hey, RDA continues his killer streak of people that he's beaten and adding to the resume, just another body count. Dude's vicious. I don't know who he matches up against next, but I can tell you that I already look forward to it. We don't know how many more years he's got left in him. I mean, I think he's 37 now. And I'm just at this point in my life, I'm starting to appreciate and respect these old guys that we grew up on. It was hard to watch Frankie Edgar knocked out by Sandhagen as bad as he did, but still a legend of the sport, somebody I always find myself cheering for, right? RDA, the same aspect, a legend of the sport, I always find myself cheering on and trying to, like a little bit more. But we get those fighters every now and again that we like, Cerrone, for instance. I mean, everybody wants to fight Cowboy because he's a legend, right? And we grew up with these guys, and now we're kind of seeing the outs of them where they're not necessarily doing anything anymore. So it's tough. And I mean, the glory days are kind of swinging behind them, if you will.
Yeah. And and it's always different too, I guess, with the guys that are like Cerrone. You can clearly see that it's the downswing,
Right.
compared to RDA, who's still he still looks like a machine. So that's like that hit and miss. It's like you want to see these guys do well, and it sucks when they're not. So it's awesome to see when they're out there and they're grinding still.
Yeah, I respect that a ton, man. Again, a lot of the legends of the sport that we followed are kind of on their glory ends of their careers and riding off to the sunset, if you will, which is awesome because guys like Moicano and these up-and-comers are going to be really, really the face of the UFC coming soon, which is really, really cool for us to see. UFC 272 main event, Colby Covington versus Jorge Street Jesus Masvidal. And you know what? It's not the bloodshed that I think everybody was expecting. I don't think it's the war that everybody was expecting. But you got Colby Chaos Covington doing exactly what he is known for and so damn good at it. I honestly could not believe how easy he made this fight look.
Yeah, and even I feel like he could have finished it. Like he came out in the third, and he was a lot more, doing that pitter patter and landing lots. And if he would have done, I think if he would have started doing that earlier, he would have tired Masvidal out sooner, and it would have. I think he would have stopped it because it wasn't until around the third that he started doing that and really putting it on Masvidal. And that's when Masvidal, like in the fourth, he was so tired. Even when he caught Colby, he had nothing to finish him with because he was. And I think if he had any energy, he could have finished him because Colby was out on his feet for like a good 40 seconds there. And so I think, but yeah, I think Colby just stuck to his game plan and he looked really good. It was awesome.
Chaos for a reason, man. I mean, I'm one of his biggest fans. I'll support him till he's no longer in the UFC. But I would tell you this: he lived up to the nickname. He lived up to the Cardio King. He looked up to everything. I mean, this is the crazy part about Colby Covington. There's been so many trash talkers in the game. So many guys that always shot the shit and made, drove in ticket sales, drove in hype. He's just a consummate at it and just beats the shit out of guys, man. And it's just crazy. Like, he talks the talk and walks the walk all at the same time. Now, we've seen it before with guys like McGregor and Chael Sonnen prior too. But, I mean, there is nobody like Colby Chaos Covington.
That's true. He brings excitement. He's fun. His press conferences are hilarious. And when you get him against the right guy, like he sells it himself, and I like that.
Big time. What were your thoughts on the fight, Justin? If your screen's loading here.
Sorry, I might keep cutting out here. I'm in the middle of the mountains in BC, so my Wi-Fi is not proven to be the greatest.
As he says, greatest. It's cutting off. That's hilarious. No, I mean, I can probably talk for Justin in this aspect. He was talking to me during the entire fight, and we were going back and forth through text, and we were literally saying to each other, it's like, this is, Masvidal needed this fight. Masvidal needed this win to not, he just signed a contract, and this is now going to become the really hard thing for the UFC, is that, yeah, Jorge's, he's definitely a marketable piece, and he brings names, and he brings assets to the stadium and stuff like that, but he hasn't won a fight since 2019, and he just re-upped his contract. And I'm like, this is the worst case scenario for Jorge Masvidal, because we have just heard recent rumors that Leon Edwards is going to be moving up and he's going to be facing Kamaru Usman, which is going to be a great matchup, I think, for the welterweight title. They haven't announced a date yet. I know that they said they were scheduling for July. No official date, but yeah, that's going to be a great fight. I think Leon Edwards finally gets his title shot and deserving of it. But again, it's just like, what do you do with Masvidal in this situation? Because you can feed him to the top 5 guys or even the top 10 guys, but it seems like I just don't, unless he knocks him out quick, it's just like the gas tank has always been his issue.
And that might just be it, like I wouldn't be too hard on him. He lost to Colby and Usman. Those are he hasn't won since 2019, but he's fought number 1 and number 2. And he could be number 3 and just losing to number 1 and number 2. So I wouldn't count him out yet. I think, maybe 3 rounds is his cup of tea. That's where he shines. And that's where we'll just have to see. Because I think there's a lot of good matchups for him. There's a lot of good things that could happen for him. He's exciting, obviously he wasn't able to show much of his stand-up just because he was on the ground most of the time defending. But I think there's a place for him, and I think he's going to do some big things still. I think having Usman and Colby as your last 3 losses, those are
respectable.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, let's put on our thinking hats here, and let's play matchmaker. We're Sean Shelby right now, and we've got 2 great pieces in our division. We've got Colby Covington and we got Jorge Masvidal. Let's start with Jorge. Who's the matchup, Justin, that you think makes sense for Jorge?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. Like I said, like Cole was saying, like there's some interesting fights that could happen for sure. Like he talks about 2 more fights he's back in and fighting Usman is what he's been talking about all week, right? So I don't know. I'm gonna throw this one to Cole, man. I don't know. Who do you think, buddy?
I think if Usman beats Leon, why go Leon?
Yeah. I was kind of leaning towards that too. And Usman, I think, will beat him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a matchup that's been years in the making. I mean, we remember the 3-piece Minnesota thing that was backstage when Leon Edwards and Jorge had that bad blood going on. I mean, that totally makes sense for me as a matchmaker. And it's going to draw some names. I think that's like a live fight night card, that'd probably be my main event. I don't know if it's essentially, I mean, it depends, right? It depends where they put them, but I mean, that'd be a good co-main, I guess, if you're not doing any title fights. But the other one that I look at Covington, I'm like, hey, I think we got our matchup already ready to go. Dustin Poirier seems to be the guy that wants to, knock his fucking block off. And I mean, the comments that Covington made, yeah, I mean, Covington essentially called him right out after the fight, got rid of one street trash. Now he wanted to get Louisiana swamp trash out of the system too. And honest to God, I think Kobe can beat him.
I think so too. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, especially with obviously there's going to be a size difference there, but I think Dustin, I would put odds more in Dustin's favor than Masvidal's favor, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because Dustin's not getting tired. He's fighting for 5 rounds. As long as he's still awake, he's there. He's going to be in your face. He's going to be throwing. So I think that's a more dangerous fight for Kobe than Masvidal. And I think Dustin's takedown defense is better. So there's going to be a little bit more problems there for Covington, unless that size difference is so big that it is easy to take him down. But I don't think so. And I think that's a really cool fight. I really hope that one is the one.
It's going to happen. I mean, just the trash talking that he's been doing and calling what his kid being Connor's kid and all that kind of stuff. He's crossing some lines, right? So, I mean, it's good to see as a fan. It's kind of, you sit back, it's like, okay, right, let's see. But, I mean, he is crossing some lines when it comes to trash talking. So I'm looking forward to that fight. I think it will happen. And, yeah, it's going to be – I think it'll be a close one. You're right, though. I think Poirier's got the gas tank to stand up with Covington, where Jorge didn't, right? That's just the end of it.
Dustin's biggest kryptonite throughout his entire career has been wrestlers. So the fact that Covington is probably one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, he's 20 takedowns away and this is a crazy stat. He's 20 takedowns away from being tied with GSP for most ever in the welterweight division. And he is only 28 years old. So the sky is literally the limit for Kobe Covington. I think he probably, when it's all said and done, I think he shatters that record that GSP holds in that division. And it's crazy because, I mean, even at the weigh-ins, when you saw the perspective of weight cuts, it looked like Kobe was ready to go. Like it didn't look like it was hard on him, but you could see Masvidal.
He doesn't cut much weight, yeah.
Yeah, it just looked like he probably naturally walks around at 180. I mean, and he's probably smart for doing so. He doesn't seem like a guy that, parties all that hard or whatever. It doesn't seem like he seems pretty committed to always being around that 170 weight cut. So, again, I like Dustin a ton. I was happy when he knocked the fucking blocks off of McGregor. I've been happy when he's done whatever he's done. But I'm telling you right now, his kryptonite always will be and continues to be. We just saw it against Oliveira. Wrestlers, man. The second that he gets given up to a wrestler, he's not good. And I mean, we saw it against even Khabib. Khabib literally took him down within 20 seconds and just held him captive for an essential 2-3 rounds. So I mean, it's Dustin's struggle, and hopefully he can work with a good wrestling coach and get that figured out. And I think I agree with you boys fully. That's the matchup to make. Covington, Poirier. I would probably side with Covington in that fight, but we also had a non-UFC thing going on, and I know Justin said he's not so familiar with Bellator, but myself and Cole, we really like Bellator. I was behind the scenes today. I just want to give a quick shout out to Bellator's media staff. It's just so cool. I actually got to talk to Phil Davis today and ask him a question. And Phil Davis is in my top 10 favorite fighters of all time. So that was really, really cool. So thanks to the PR staff for making that happen. But on the weekend, on Friday, we had a fight card called Bellator 275. Gegard Mousasi taking on Austin Vanderford. And this fight didn't last more than 90 seconds. So that's fucking crazy. Cole and I have literally also mentioned how Rafael dos Anjos has a killer's row of victims that he has beaten. Well, Gegard Mousasi continues to pile to his resume as well. An absolutely dominating performance. Like I said, it only was 90 seconds. I will say this, and I don't know if Austin has admitted to this yet, but it looked like when I was rewatching the fight, because I had to watch it again. I mean, 90 seconds. I mean, you got to watch it again, right? So I rewatched the fight, and it seemed like Vanderford was going for a takedown, which obviously we alluded to in the podcast last week. He's a very good takedown artist. And I said the only way he was going to win that fight is by his wrestling. But when he went for the takedown, it looked like Gegard pulled his leg up and was able to kind of jam Vanderford's neck. Because if you notice, he like creaks up and his neck kind of goes stiff and he falls down right away. And Gegard capitalized on that. So I don't know if he stung himself so much so that he kind of knocked himself out of the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and yeah, you were mentioning that, and I never went back and watched it again, but I should, because that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Austin Vanderford is as tough as they come. As much as people make fun of him and being Paige Van Zandt's husband and stuff like that, he was undefeated. But we also said going into that fight, he's fought tin cans. I mean, he's never fought the murderer's row that Gegard Mousasi, who is by far without a shadow of doubt definitely an MMA Hall of Famer. The second he retires. But I just, again, I watched it, and when I was rewatching it again, I just said, man, Austin doesn't look right. Even when I watched that live, I was like, I texted you right away. I was like, hey, I think he stung his neck a little bit, because I mean, he just essentially collapsed to the ground, and it's not like him to just give up back or anything like that. And then he wasn't really defending either. So when he was getting tagged on the ground, I was like, oh boy, this isn't looking good for him. Like, he's not putting his arms up. There's not a ton of defense from Austin. So I think he might have had a stinger, but he's been really, really quiet about it, because I feel like Vanderford's not the guy to make an excuse.
Yeah, and I thought he looked weird from the beginning of the fight. Like, he looked like, I don't know if he was just like being in the big show, maybe a little bit the nerves, but I thought like the whole round he looked weird, to be honest. Like, he was kind of like hesitating when he usually doesn't, and I think he was maybe a little bit starstruck as well.
Yeah, again, you're fighting a legend of the sport across from you. You've only had 10 professional fights. I mean, I'm sure Austin's had more, but pro fights, he's only had 10. And I'm like, again, I agree with you fully. You go in there and you're like, hey, holy shit, that's Gegard Mousasi. Like, this man has beaten literally everyone in the world, like, and has dominated. I mean, I'm in trouble here. And he looked, and usually when Austin gets in the octagon, he's like, kind of swaggy. He's kind of feeling it a little bit. And he was just like stiffed right up. Like, I don't know if the moment hit him, everything hit him, and he was just like, boom. Like, and I mean, I don't know how serious he was taking training either. And I'll allude to this later on, but like, I mean, he was going to AEW, so All Elite Wrestling. He was doing stuff with Dan Lambert and American Top Team as a storyline, but I don't know if he was taking his fight as serious as Gegard was. And I understand, I understand Bellator being like, hey, go promote us and go promote our show and get our name out there with American Top Team and stuff like that. Totally understandable. But I just don't know if he was overseeing the fight. But nonetheless, 90 seconds, we had a decision. A hand was raised for Gegard Mousasi, who continues to be a nightmare in Bellator, man. This is a perfect division for him. He was a nightmare in the UFC. I think it was just a contract dispute more that I looked into it. That was really the breakdown for those guys. But hey, man, hell of a performance.
Definitely. He's the man. 49. That was 49th win or 48th win? 49.
Wow.
Amazing. So crazy.
If you want a fun little job after you're done this podcast, go Google search Gegard Mousasi's MMA record and see the people that he has beaten. It is by far one of the craziest. Anyways, let's get into the news portion of things, boys. We got a couple announcements, a couple of people doing different things, and we're going to get into boxing because we obviously have the boxing expert with us. This one came as a kind of a surprise to me, but I was pretty fucking amped when it was made. Both guys are both on losing streaks, so I understand the matchup. We have Michael Chandler taking on Tony Ferguson that was announced, and I am fucking all in. This is the dream matchup. Michael Chandler has been tested in the UFC so far. He's fought some pretty tough competition. Obviously, coming off his last fight with Charles Oliveira, getting knocked out. Everybody seems to have lost to Charles Oliveira, so it's not really a big thing, including Tony Ferguson. And Ferguson passing the torch in that fight, saying, hey, man, you're the better me now. So two guys that are in that 30-plus range in their ages. They've had huge careers. How do you see this one going? I'll start with you, Justin.
That's a tough one, man. When they announced that fight, I got excited too. I've always been a Ferguson fan ever since I started watching MMA. He's fun to watch, right? But Chandler, I mean, I think Chandler's got the upper edge on this one. I personally think, but it should be a good fight all the way through, I think.
Cole, what do you figure?
Yeah, this is nuts. I love Ferguson. I've loved him for a long time. He's the man. His last little streak here has kind of broken my heart, kind of seeing the damage he's taken. But I mean, man, I want Ferguson to win so bad. Even though I love Chandler as well. Like I really enjoy watching Chandler fight. But I just have he's been in my top 5 for a long time. So I would like to see him get that win, and I don't think he can't be stopped, So it's going to be interesting to see what Chandler's like in that 4th and 5th round.
Yeah,
because he goes full throttle, every round. So it'll be interesting to see what his gas tank is actually like, against someone who goes full throttle as well. So it's not like a one-sided thing. It's going to be high-paced, high intensity, and everyone knows Ferguson's not going to stop for 5 rounds, and it's going to be cool to see Chandler as well.
Yeah, I think Tony Ferguson, realistically, this has kind of got a weird implements to how this is going to shape up with the lightweight division. I think realistically, if Chandler wins, I think he pushes him back into the top 3 again and probably gets himself another title shot at some point. That's why he left Bellator. And I mean, that's why he came over, was to fight the better fighters. And so far he's had a taste of that. He beat Dan Hooker, knocked him out cold and was a vicious knockout with a huge height difference. And then obviously losing to Dustin Poirier and then beating Dustin Poirier, right? Or am I wrong with that? He beat Poirier. Beat Poirier, went to Oliveira, lost to Oliveira, got viciously knocked out. But he was 10 seconds away from being the UFC lightweight champion, which is bananas. I mean, he did have Charles Oliveira in that first round absolutely knocked unconscious, and Oliveira was literally saved by the bell in that performance. And then obviously coming out, knocking out Chandler. But for Tony, man, this is where it gets hard because age starts creeping on your side too. You go on a little bit of a losing streak, and we've seen this before where guys, prime example, Alistair Overeem, a top 10 guy in the heavyweight division, went on a bit of a tear, lost 1 fight, lost 2 fights, got cut. It's one of those situations that, Tony is a great guy for the business, and he has brought in millions, probably millions of dollars. It's always going to be a shame that we never got to see Khabib and Ferguson in their primes. I think that's a one matchup I'm always going to be upset we never got to see. But nonetheless, man, this one's a banger. Like, Sean Shelby knocked this one absolutely out of the park. I'm personally going to be rooting for Chandler in this fight. I'm a Ferguson guy through and through. I think he's been absolutely unbelievable for the UFC and what he's done throughout his career. But Chandler has just been, I don't know, he's been unstoppable at times. But I agree with you, Cole. He needs to be very hesitant on how his combinations are being thrown. He has to be very, very smart against a guy like Tony Ferguson, because if you gas and show even the smallest restraint of being tired, Tony Ferguson will turn it the fuck up.
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree with you there, buddy, for sure.
Just totally who he is. So that'll be an interesting one, boys. I can't wait to recap that when that comes around. But some other news. We talked about Austin Vanderford. Well, hell, let's talk about his wife. Paige Van Zandt has officially left Bare Knuckle Fight Club. She's obviously the former UFC fighter. Made her All Elite Wrestling debut last night and has officially walked away from combat sports, which, if you look at her Instagram, she's been away from it for a while.
Did you watch it?
I watched it, and I thought it was pretty funny because when she signed the contract, she signed it on Tanya Conti's ass. And I thought that was pretty funny. All things considered, Paige Van Zandt, I mean, that's the perfect world for her. She's on Instagram flaunting her body. She doesn't want to get punched in the face anymore. She has a career way beyond combat sports. It wasn't the greatest run for her with the UFC. She had some moments that spinning kick is probably one of the coolest ones that we'll have of her highlight reel. But the second that she went over to bare knuckle, I said, "Ooh boy, this isn't the field that you want to be in." I understand the pay is good, the money's really good, they pay their fighters extremely well, but fuck, honestly, the more that I've been watching bare knuckle, I'm just like, fuck, man, this is a vicious sport and hard to get into because you're killed out there, man.
Yeah, just cringe your teeth every time, man.
Whoa, yeah. And you're like, ooh, and everything is just so like on. And I understand that you have to pay probably pretty handsomely because I can only imagine how bad you would feel after one of those fights. But good for Van Zandt. I think she's going to really do well. She's been training with a couple of former WWE people, so that's good. She'll be working with AEW wrestlers too, and I mean, it's the perfect world for her. She's an entertainer, and again, if you look at her Instagram or any of her other shit, she's promoting OnlyFans and all this other shit. It's the perfect world for her. So congratulations on signing her contract. And like I said, I thought it was just so fucking funny at the end of it. She's just signing her contract on a girl's ass. So I giggle. If you watch her Instagram, you'll completely understand what I'm talking about. And some other news that kind of made my head kind of go, what? This one was a little weird for me. Obviously, we all know Tyson Fury is getting ready for his camp. He literally shut off all his social medias. He hasn't been doing any press. He's literally said, I'm taking an 8-week hiatus, which is, I think, really cool of him. And he's going to be focusing on Mr. White because Mr. White is a hell of a fighter. So this matchup really intrigues me. But one of the comments that was made was that Fury said, after this fight, I'm done. Cole, do you think he's done?
I do. Yeah. I think he's not in it for the money. That's not why he boxes. He's a gypsy. He's the gypsy king. It was in his blood. His father, his family is known for boxing, gypsy boxing, so bare knuckle boxing actually. And he grew up with it, Tyson, named after Mike Tyson. It's been in his blood his whole life. He often donates his whole purse. He's literally not in it for the money. He gives away his money. That's not why he boxes. So I do believe him. And I think he really has nothing else to prove. And I think he's just sick of the politics of boxing. They're not going to make these fights happen. I'm not going to sit here and ask for it. I'm the best. Come for me. If you don't want to, they clearly don't want to, or else it would be happening. So he's going to fight White and then fight Ngannou and then peace out, and why not?
You think he's going to fight Ngannou? You think that'll happen?
I mean, if Dana wants it to happen, it'll happen. I think that's the only stipulation there, and Dana loves money, so.
How do you see that one playing out?
Not good for Ngannou.
That boy
but when I say not good for Ngannou, I mean like all good for Ngannou. He's gonna make $100 million. He's gonna take way less damage. Like it's not gonna be. And then he's going to go on and have a great UFC career. It's a win-win. It's the only one who risks anything is Fury if he gets knocked out. If Ngannou gets knocked out, you just fought the greatest heavyweight of maybe all time. So if I was Ngannou, I'd take the $100 million and.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you fully on every aspect of what you just broke down. I am in full agreement that I do think this is one of his last fights, if not the last fight. His last fight, he donated his entire purse to, I think half of it went to his camp, his people in the camp, and then he donated, I think it was like 4 or 5 million, or what was it, 40 or 50 million to some. Oh, I'm trying to remember what donation it was, but he didn't even keep $1 of it. No. And that's after fighting Deontay Wilder and beating him again. Like I was just like, this is crazy. And I understand what you're saying when you're playing matchmaker and all these guys are coming for you and calling people out, but then commission and boxing is saying, well, no, you have to fight this guy and you have to do this. Because we were all preparing for Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. I think we were all ready for that fight. We were all preparing for it. And then it was just like, just kidding. The commission said no, and just here's Deontay Wilder, even though we don't fucking want him to be there, right? Like, it was just like we were force-fed that fight. And even Tyson said himself, it's like, I was never really in that fight. I didn't really care. Like, he's like, I was having fun, obviously, but it's just, I don't want to do that kind of stuff. That's how it's going to be in this sport. And I agree with you. He's going to make, what did they say he's going to make on this fight? $141 million. I do believe is his estimated payday.
And that's just the pay he'll get. That's not including like everything in behind the scenes, you know. So it's a fraction. But even going back to what you said, like even with like the Usyk coming in and beating Joshua, and then Usyk was gonna fight Tyson, and then all of a sudden Joshua's like, no, I want my rematch. So it's like, and then they tried to pay him to have him step away from the con. And it's like, it's just so complicated, I guess, and it would be frustrating.
It's a severely broken system. I mean, people's major complaint with boxing for years has been that it's got such a, like, and you obviously know more than anybody. It's such a frustrating sport because the best of the best should be fighting the best of the best, just like it should be in every other sport. But for some weird reason, the commission of boxing always steps in, always has some kind of weird mandate, and then all of a sudden they're just like, these fighters that want to fight one another are all of a sudden handcuffed because they just can't do it, because the boxing commission goes, well, no, we're not going to let Joshua fight Fury, even though everybody in the world wants it, because Usyk wants to fight him, and then Usyk fought him, beat him, and now Joshua needs his matchup. It's like you said, it's stylistically, it's a nightmare to be a boxer, and so I really do think that this is the end of Tyson Fury. And if it is, man, like you said, it's in his blood. He's a gypsy king. He's one of the greatest to ever do it, if not the greatest to ever do it in the heavyweight division. His story, I think, far exceeds his boxing. To overcome the fucking demons that man has overcome, and to be a face of an organization. Not many guys can go through substance abuse the way he has and be the face of boxing or any other sport ever. So tip of the cap to Mr. Fury. I think he's one of the greatest to ever do it. I am very intrigued to see the Francis Ngannou contract situation with the UFC. I'm glad you brought that up, because he is without a contract right now, and it sounds like every fight he wants is $700,000 plus is what his asking price is, which, hey, I think he's worth it. I really do. I obviously know that he has been, kind of hit and miss when it comes to the main events and stuff like that, but he's on a big streak now. He's won against, the who's who of who was in the heavyweight division. So, and he's been the face. I mean, you look at the champions that we have, I call it the African row, because, I mean, you've got the African champions right now of Aljamain Sterling and, of course, Israel Adesanya. You've got Francis Ngannou and Kamaru Usman, who are the forefront fathers right now of the titles. And I agree with him, man. Hey, it's like I am promoting a sport that's not really promoted, and people are watching it, gathering by thousands on the street to watch me fight. So now's my time to make a paycheck. Plus, he's earned it, I think, at this point. But $700,000, I'm a little skeptical on. But I think if you give him $6, I think that's more than reasonable.
I think $7's fair, though. He deserves it. He brings the fight, right? I mean, that last fight that he had, I think he proved to a lot of people that he's not just a striker either. I mean, his game's getting a little bit better every fight, I think. But yeah, $700K. I mean, when you see these boxers making $100 million on a fight, to pay this guy $700K to get in the ring to fight, I mean, they should be paying him that, I think.
I agree. I think him what he wants. He's clearly he's clearly a champion. And just like you just said, you could tell that in his last fight. His actual fight IQ is going up. He's actually making these decisions where it's like, okay, I'm getting, I'm going to go for the take. All right, that worked. I'm going to go back and do that. He's making adjustments. He's beating the top against top guys. So it's not like he's just not a knockout artist anymore. He's a champion, and people are tuning in to watch him. I would like to. I don't know the numbers, but I'm guessing he's one of the highest sellers right now in the UFC. He's a terrifying looking human being. People want to see him destroy people, right? And because he has been. So I feel like the UFC is making enough money to pay him what he wants.
I pray to God that I never have to meet that man in the back alley because I will be scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen that Jackass movie yet? I haven't seen Jackass yet. I've
but
seen the clip.
I plan on doing it this week, but apparently it was like Johnny said that there was some severe pain after he left some damage. But yeah, no, crazy. I really hope that they get the contract figured out. I really do hope. Again, who had Cyril Gahn getting out wrestled by Nagano on their 2022 fight card? You know, no one had that. So yeah, no, pay the man. Continue developing the heavyweight division. We've alluded to tonight. There's been a lot of great things that have happened in that heavyweight division, so let's continue with that. This is part 2, guys. This is called Into the Future. We're moving on up. This is sponsored by the Connexus Credit Union and the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. We will dive into some of the matchups that we think are intriguing coming up, including this weekend with UFC Vegas 49. Crazy that we're at Vegas 49 already. This matchup is a little bit interesting because there's a lot on the line. Mr. Ankalaev taking on the one and only Thiago Santos, who I honestly thought was going to beat John Jones at one point in his career and has went on this weird up and down swing. And yeah, no, this should be a really intriguing matchup. I think Ankalaev wins this fight. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Ankalaev does too as well. Santos has been up and down, okay? Just like you just said. It's kind of weird. But I think Ankalaev takes this one.
Yeah, it's going to be – I think it's going to be one-sided, to be honest. I think, you know, he's just, you know, representing his guys just like everyone, you know, one loss, like everyone, they all have that one loss, you know, early in their career. And, you know, he's on like an 8 or 9 fight win streak and just making it look easy. And I think he's going to make this look easy. I think, yeah, I think Thiago is not who he was.
No, and I think ever since that John Jones fight, he just looks like a shell of himself. He looks like he's, you know, he's hesitant on everything that he does, which makes me so mad because he's got heavy hands and he's got a ton of power in those mitts. And John Jones got tagged and even said, man, like that guy hit me and he hit me hard. And for John Jones to say that about his opponent, usually, you know, he doesn't say anything like that. But yeah, no, I mean, Santos needs to win this fight. I think it more so, but Ankalaev is just, man, he's on a murderer's row too, and he's making his name in that division, and I think he'll be contending for a title very, very soon. So this is a great main event, and if you get the chance to this weekend, definitely check it out. One fight that's kicking off the card that I kind of wanted to dive into because I think it's such a cool, unique story. Drew Dober is going to be taking on Terrence McKinney. Now, Terrence McKinney just fought 10 days ago. And got a submission victory. And so he was actually just kicking around in Vegas still because he fought in Vegas for UFC Vegas 48 and decided he had a submission win. So he didn't take a lot of damage. Said, hey, I'll step up as long as I can pass my medicals, which he did. But if you don't know the story of Terrence McKinney, this is one of the most incredible men that are on face of the planet Earth right now. About 4 years ago, police had found him on the side of essentially a wall. Pretty much head beat in, had a really bad case. Apparently he was sitting on this wall, but he was so high that he fell over and actually hit his head completely on the cement. And for all intents and purposes, he said that, you know, the doctors even said that Terrence should be dead, which is pretty crazy. He had so much. The one thing that saved him was the fact that he was on mushrooms. It's crazy to think about, but it stimulated his brain to the aspect that it kept him alive. So it's a crazy science. It's a crazy thing. He's been 3 years sober, obviously, since. But Terrence McKinney has changed his narrative around, changed his life around, and has been really, really, really like a wrecking ball since he's come back. And again, like I said, UFC Vegas. But Drew Dober is a tough son of a bitch. Drew Dober gets in wars, and that is what he's famous for. I mean, you've seen the last couple of fights that he's had. He is a stand there, complete banger. I foresee, you know, maybe the short camp. I would normally probably route McKinney in this because he's a really good wrestler, and Dober kind of struggles against that. But on a 10-day notice, I think I'm going to roll with Drew Dober on this one.
I don't know. It depends what kind of fight what happens when they come out there. If they're standing up, for sure, Dober for sure. But if McKinney can get him down, after that last submission that I seen on that one, I don't know. I think he can beat him.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on what his celebration was like. You know, like was he back in the gym? Was he just chilling in Vegas and eating and kind of, you know, just taking that day, those 10 days to chill? It'd be interesting to know because
Sounds
you know,
like
I
he's got
mean,
his head on pretty straight, though. I don't think he's out partying. Obviously not. He's been 3 years sober, right? So
I don't mean partying, but I mean
Just like
for
diet and
myself, when I take off 2 weeks from boxing, it's not like riding a bike.
yeah.
You know, skipping is hard when I take 10 days off. So I would just like to know if he was, you know, doing some training here and there, staying in shape, running, going for like what was he up to? And I guess we'll find out what his conditioning's like. But Dober, that's a tough fight. He's a tough dude.
Yeah, Drew Dober's got a full camp too. That's kind of why I'm rolling with Dober in this. I mean, McKinney obviously didn't take a lot of damage in his last fight and got a pretty easy submission victory. And again, he probably didn't take all that much punishment. So I agree with you. It's not like like you said, you take 10 days off. Who knows what kind of shape you're in? And I agree fully, right? If I don't go to the gym in 10 days, my body's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like,
Yeah.
but what do you, I don't like this. Like my knees hurt for no particular reason at all, right? So, yeah, no, nonetheless, that's going to be a great matchup. That's going to kick that card off. If you got a chance this weekend, make sure to watch it. We'll recap it in 2 weeks' time. Make sure to tune in, of course. We're also going to preview it this week. UFC 273 is coming up literally in 3 weeks, but I figured with the way that we have it broken down and the way that we have our week scheduled usually, why not preview it now? Plus, we got Justin here, so this kind of helps. The return of Kelvin Gastelum, ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite fighters ever in the UFC. His gas tank for such a little spark plug is just some of the funnest. His wrestling is all elite. His hands are vicious. When he lets go of kicks, he can be one of the best fighters, but sometimes he forgets to put the full package together and he loses some pretty big fights. So this one's going to be a fun one against Amov. How do you see this one going, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of gatekeepers, I think that's how you define Gaslam. I think I love him too. Like his combinations are beautiful. Like he's such a, but like he like someone described it once. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about him that he keeps up. He goes at your pace, and that's why he loses all the time. Because he goes at the pace of his opponent, even though he can do way more. Because his like you said, his gas tank's unlimited. But for some reason, whatever pace you're doing, he matches it. So he loses by decision loss, split decisions, and he just doesn't do that little bit of extra where to win those rounds. And it's super frustrating because of how talented he is. And you can go check out his record. He's won 1 out of his last 6. That sucks because of how much talent he has. So depending on who comes out, you just never know. So it's a hard one to put a bet on. But I would like to see Gaslam win. But
It's a big fight for Gaslam, I think. I mean, or what's next after this fight for him if he doesn't pull this one off, right? So yeah, I think he's got some extra he's got some extra motivation coming into this one to put on a fight. I've always liked watching him too. I mean, he's a tank, right? So, but that Russian on the other side, I mean, he's good as well. This could go either way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you fully. Gaslam, like I said, when he puts them all together, man, he has some of the most, it's almost like you're watching poetry in motion because he's so fluent and he's so precise every single time. Like it's a calculated takedown. It's a good time. Left jab for him has always been his power jab. If he slips that leg in, he's got really quick kicks too. And he's a really inside leg guy. But again, I watched that fight and I was rewatching some of his older fights and I rewatched the one with Robert Whittaker. And I thought to myself, shit, man, if he would have just kept his pace, and Whittaker has notoriously struggled against guys who are pretty good at wrestling and have great leg kicks. I mean, Izzy's been a prime example of that. But Gaslam, I thought, really, really competed well. But when the tank needed to be running, it was like he was gun shy. Like he was hesitant in that fight to just make that next step, to maybe throw that leg kick, to maybe throw that left hand. And instead would let Whittaker walk in on him. And we all know that you let Robert Whittaker walk in on you, it's a fucking long day at the office. So, I mean, it's tough with Gaslam. And I agree with Cole. If you're 1-6, you lose this fight. I mean, I don't want to say the writing's on the wall in the UFC for you, but it's hard to bring you back, especially in that division. Like that's why I said, and that wasn't just a shot at him going to PFL, but I think that's realistically his next step. Like I think that's a league that benefits him and has him there, and he can continue to grow. He's not that old either. So, yeah. I mean, I really do hope Kelvin Gastelum wins this fight. I'm with you guys on this one. I would probably be rolling him with bets when it comes in. Also, we're kind of, like I said, breaking down this whole card. Mackenzie Dern taking on Tecia Torres. Man, I'm really looking forward to this one. Mackenzie Dern, an up-and-coming prospect. Tecia Torres is, I don't want to say a veteran of the game, but she's been around for a while, especially with Invicta. So she was a champ out there. I am going to root and probably go for Mackenzie Dern in this fight because everything I've seen from Mackenzie Dern has been pretty spectacular so far.
Yeah, same here. From what I've seen from her too as well, I think she's going to come out and have a big fight. I think this is a big fight for her to move up in the rankings. I call a submission on this one. I'm just calling it.
Spicy. I wonder what the odds are on that one.
I think so too. I think she'll take her down. She'll get that submission, grind her out. Yeah, and then she'll be kind of back on that track. I know, both of them are they're very tough. Like they're both very good fighters. Obviously, completely different fighters. And they just they get there. They get there and then they lose, right? Then they get there, then they lose, and it's so it's gonna put one of them back on track. And I think Darren as well, submission. But that's a tough division. It's such a tough division.
It is a tough division, that is for sure. I'm going to roll with Dern. I also I got to figure out, I'm going to check it out on our official sponsor, BetUS, to figure out what the odds are exactly on that one, because I think submission, you got to think that it would be a nice little lump sum of money depending on the round, but we will definitely figure that one out. That is a great fight and great matchup. And again, for Tecia Torres' purposes, she also has been very hit and miss with this division. So, like Cole said, she kind of gets there, dips off, gets there again, dips off. So this will be interesting. The matchup that I am most intrigued by, actually, I guess all three of these fights are going to be great. This fight, I am beyond excited for, fellas. Again, Sean Shelby knocked this one out of the park when it came to matchmaking. Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev. And I am telling you right now, I think Khamzat has met his kryptonite. I am going to be rolling with Gilbert Burns in this fight, and the only reason why is because Gilbert Burns is one of the only men in this division that has almost knocked out Kamaru Usman. So I am going to be rolling Gilbert Burns in this. I think he is quick, he has heavy hands, and Khamzat has not faced the like of a Gilbert Burns yet.
I can't wait for this fight. When I saw this one on here, I was like, yeah, this is good because, Burns, he's got some heavy hands, man. He can knock you out one punch, right? So I think you're right by calling this. He's kind of met his match on this one, but he's the real deal too, man. I don't know. This is a tough one to call. It really is. But it's going to be an exciting fight, I think. This is going to be it could be one of the fights of the year so far. It really could.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. Khamzat, I like him. 10,
I like him.
10-0, 10 finishes. Let's keep that streak going. I like Burns a lot. I do. But I mean, he had a shot. I want to say, and it wasn't. Yeah, he definitely did really well. And that's why I like him. I do like him. But I like this hype train right now. I like it. It makes, I don't know, it's exciting. So I'm gonna go with Khamzat, I think.
It's good for the sport too. I mean, Khamzat's up and comer too, right? I mean, it's kind of different when you look at who he's beaten as compared to Austin Vanderford. When you look at undefeated streaks, right, for two different organizations. And I mean, Gilbert Burns is the real deal. And that's the only reason why I'm rolling with him, just because I think his hands are just so heavy that Khamzat hasn't faced a guy that's like that. Khamzat has been good for the sport, though. He's at every event. He's going to every after party, it seems. He's going to every
Is he training with Till right now? Is that what I saw?
So, yeah, Darren Till actually switched camps. He left England and came down and is now training with Khamzat in Vegas. And it just seems Michael Bisping had a really good story today on his Instagram about how they went driving together after the event last weekend. And Kamzat was just ripping donuts in the parking lot. And he just seems like a fucking fun guy. And Bisping was trying to get milk for the next day. He's like, I just wanted milk for my coffee. It's the only reason why I went with them. And here I am with Darren Till and Kamzat in the same vehicle, who are just two characters by themselves, right? I mean, and it's probably good for Darren Till to be with Kamzat's camp. Sean Strickland is actually there too. So they kind of got like a who's who in that camp right now. And I think for Darren Till, who's, potentially, he's got championship material in him. He's going to learn a lot from these two guys. But Kamzat, like, I agree with you, Cole. If he gets Burns down to the ground and does it quickly, like, he will, as Kamzat likes to say, smish his opponent. So, I mean, this will be really intriguing. I think this one has Fight of the Night written all over it. I guess, so we got two. I'm going to go with Burns.
Kamzat.
All right. Kamzat. Yeah.
All right, so I'm the underdog. Good one. Okay, so when we come to put our bets on there, I'll make sure that the 2-1 favorite gets picked on that one. So when we make our official fight card picks, for the record, just want to say we're 13 for 15 on the year. That's pretty goddamn impressive. So
you're doing all right, man. You're doing all right for sure.
We're rolling it. We've won some plus money too. So this is a matchup that's been months in the making. Actually, Justin and I went. We actually threw this fight up at Ballers in Regina. When it happened, we were all kind of a little struck by what happened. Obviously, this is a rematch in the making. Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan. This has been a back and forth thing for a long time. Aljamain Sterling's been out with that neck injury for quite some time now, almost a year since this rematch, which is crazy. Peter Yan has been training with Muay Thai kicker or boxers. He's been in basically Bali. He's been everywhere, it seems, training for this fight, which, again, if he doesn't throw that knee, I still think Peter Yan is the champion because he was whooping that boy's ass for 4 straight rounds. Now, I don't know which fight Aljamain Sterling has been watching and if you're being in your own corner or not, or being your own hype guy, but he was on the MMA Hour, I believe, at the start of the week and said that he was dominating that fight for 4 rounds. We all watched a different fight then.
Yeah, no way. I think Jan's going to come out. I mean, the last 2 fights Jan's fought, it's been very dominant. The guy's been very, very, very well right now, right? So I'd Sterling. I mean, this is going to be his first title defense because he's backed out of a couple fights now, I believe, right? So I think Jan's going to take the belt back. I do.
Yeah, Sterling. I don't know. I don't even look at him the same.
Something bites me about him. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I gained respect for him when he beat Sandhagen so quickly. I was like, okay, this guy is a machine. This guy's a beast. He just made Sandhagen look like it was like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Yeah, and then he does that, and I lost everything. I can't even. That's not. I don't know. When I think of a fighting mindset and a fighter's heart, that is not it. So I really hope Jan puts a beat down.
Yeah, and I'll play the side of devil's advocate too on this one. But Peter Yan knows the rules. You never. I mean, it's taught to you from fucking day one. You never throw a knee strike to a downed opponent. And Aljamain Sterling was a downed opponent. Now, did he milk it? For sure he did. Did he win the title because of it? Fuck yeah. Did that mean a bigger payday for Aljamain? For sure it did. I mean, if I was his corner guy, I'd be like, hey, man, listen, you're going to make $300,000 right now. You're going to be the champ in the UFC. You're going to have your first belt ever. Hey, no need to get back up, man. Right? I mean, that's devil's advocate. I mean, that's not a fucking fighter's mentality. That's not a champion's mentality. And that's why I think Peter Yan is going to walk right through Aljamain Sterling in this fight. I'm rolling Peter Yan on this one. He is a minus 300 favorite in this fight. Usually that typically doesn't happen when a champ is, in a title fight. So Aljamain Sterling, though, I mean, he has had this time off, right? And his wrestling, as we just alluded to, is fucking crisp. So if he can get backlash to Peter Yan quick, who's not a very big frame, I like Aljamain's chances in this. But again, he's got to get that takedown, and it's got to be quick. And this time when you take him down, you've got to do something, because even when he was in that fight, he took him down, and Peter Yan got back right up and was up and ready to go again. And that's just how good Peter Yan is. But I think it sounds like we're all rolling with Peter Yan in this fight.
Yep. I might throw $50 on Sterling just because of the odds, but I'm going in.
Yeah. The degenerate in me says $50 on Sterling. For sure. Nonetheless, that gets us into our main event, which is weird. That's the only way I can describe this main event, is that it's just a weird matchup. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. For those of you who might not know who that last name is, good for the Korean Zombie to finally get his title fight. I feel like he's just been in the UFC forever and a day, who's been fighting for just years on end, and now he's finally going to have that chance to try to take the title away from Volkanovski, which will not happen.
No, I agree with you there. I think Volkanovski is just more of a complete fighter, I believe. And every fight he's been doing, he's been getting better too as well. Hey, like stronger. Every part of his game just keeps getting better and better and better. So he's very confident going into this fight. I mean, Korean Zombie, yeah, it's nice to see him have a chance at it, but I don't think this is going to be that close either. But
I gotta agree. I gotta agree with you guys. Volkanovski, he's a complete fighter. He's and look at his resume. You know, I think the Korean Zombie is gonna have a long night with that one. Even though I love him, he's the man, and like you said, it's been a long time coming. You know, obviously he had to go join the army, or is that what happened? So he had like a couple-year delay there, but it's awesome. Yeah, give him a shot. Why not? This is gonna be a cool fight, and I feel like it's gonna go for some rounds. You know, it's not gonna be a quick stoppage. It's gonna go 4 or 5 rounds. So it's gonna be awesome to watch as well.
Yeah, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination I think Volkanovski is going to walk him. Chan Sung Jung is a tough motherfucker. And he's proven that with the war with Cub Swanson right off the get-go. Is probably one of my favorite fights of all time. Those boys just swung for like rounds on rounds. It was insane. Probably one of my favorite fights ever in the UFC. But this is a tough matchup. Volkanovski has literally walked through pretty much everybody in that division. The only person I think he really needs that can beat him is Max Holloway. Now, how long do I think Max Holloway's along from trying to fight him? I think Max probably has one more tune-up fight. And if he wins, he probably does get the rematch. They're split 1-1, so everybody knows that. Or split, or no, Volkanovski's won both fights, sorry.
Controversial one.
Controversial finish in that first one for sure. I thought Holloway did a lot more in that fight to win that fight, but what do we know about the sport and commissions? Been out to lunch lately, which is one of the discussions we had. But when it comes to betting sides of things, Alexander Volkanovski right at the moment is minus 510 favorite as to plus 375 for Chan Sung Jung. You're saying you want to throw some house money down? It's probably a good time to throw some down on a 375. That would pay you $2,500 on a $50 bet. So, I mean, hey, anything is possible in the world of MMA. That's why we absolutely love it. That's why I've been watching it all these years. But yeah, Chan Sung Jung, I just don't think has what it takes to beat Alex Volkanovski. So I really look forward to Max Holloway coming back and giving it everything he's got, because Max Holloway is going to.
Absolutely. I agree.
Perfect. Well, that is about it for us, fellas. That's all I got on the plate for tonight. Of course, we'll be back live again in 2 weeks' time, right here, same platform. You know where to follow us. Of course, Justin, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Great. Yeah.
Justin's won a couple of contests through our platforms as well, so it's always cool to have fans and that coming back on here, and that's what this is all about. When people reach out to me, I would love to have you guys on the show. You support me, I support you. It's the best way to do it. Also, Cole, thank you so much for jumping on once again this week, people. He's one of the best. How can people find you, Cole?
Everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Sandman Boxing System. Come check me out. And I just want to do a quick, we got an event here in Saskatoon, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Copus Boxing is putting on a card here. So come check it out if you're here. It's at Saskatoon Inn. Doors open at 5. So come support some local boxing. I think we got 5 or 6 guys competing on the show. So yeah, love to see you there.
Is just a curiosity question. Is our boy who won a competition on here, Noah Pratt, is he going to be on the fight card?
Unfortunately, his opponent got sick. So pulled out last second.
That sucks. Well, Noah, we know you're a fan of the podcast. He actually commented earlier in the podcast as well. So shout out to you. I know that he's got a heart of a champion, that boy. So I'm sure he's not too discouraged. He'll be back sooner than later, that's for sure. And of course, with us, as the ticker says down below, you can find us at the Boomtown Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also find all of our podcasts online at the SaaSPodNetwork.com. Also, like I said earlier in the show, PAWFC.com, we are the official media members. So you can actually go on there, watch this replay on there as well. Plus, we will be releasing our podcast tonight. If you missed it, we'll have the audio for you on Spotify, Apple Podcast Network, and anywhere that you can stream a podcast. Once again, I am Andrew. Thank you to Cole and Justin. This is the Boomtown Pod, Season 2, Episode 10. We'll see you in 2 weeks.